Hello, literates. I'm Brett Ryderly, and welcome back to Writer's Ambition. For those of you who have been down since episode 1, use a real one. And for those of you who were just finding my humble channel, welcome. We hope you stay a while. So, we are continuing our series of conversations about facts and factors in literature through the genres. We're doing race, we've done whiteness, moving on to blackness, and let's just hop right in because we know these episodes be over in a. So, this topic is really close to my heart because it's come in waves, and there have been 3 waves, and they've gotten more and more overwhelming. As they've increased. The first wave was, underwhelming. I didn't have any sort of consciousness about what I was reading. I didn't care if the book I was reading, I didn't really care about anything. I was just reading the title. If the cover art was cool, you had me, I was done. But that was when I was like preteen. When I got to high school, I realized that I wasn't seeing myself in these really cool cover arts, and I started to resent it because it was telling me that I wasn't good enough to be on cover art. And I started to get frustrated because I didn't really know how to find myself in the library. And this is before people were saying things like Google it. Like, no one ever said that to me when I was like younger. People were talking about Googling themselves, but it wasn't really said in a serious way. And even if it had been, Google is not an educator. When I tell someone to Google it, especially if I say it like now, I'm being facetious because Google is not an educator. I have had classes about Black literature, and that ain't something you can get on Google. So I say that really facetiously because Google's an algorithm created by humans, which means it absolutely is susceptible to bias. So you can't trust Google to tell you everything, especially because if you don't know what you're asking, if you don't know the right question to ask, then how can you ask Google anything? How can you ask the right question? Experience teaches us nuance, not luck. Not simple curiosity. If you're not really sure what you're curious about, you just have a sort of theme and a genre in mind. Sometimes that's good enough. Sometimes it's just not. That's just my personal opinion. That does not mean I advocate for you bothering the nearest Black person to teach you something, because that ain't what I'm saying either. I'm just saying Google is not an educator, and it definitely didn't help me when I was looking for myself in libraries. So I stumbled across one book, and this was like the peak of my second wave engagement with Black stories. I found this book in my high school library. It's called Bad Kitty by Michelle Jaffe. I had a praise break. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Wouldn't shame then. I had a praise break over this book. Do you see the color on this lady? She is not white. Sis ain't even got a head. Okay, I'm just saying. So this was super, super important to me in my development of Black stories. Jasmine, protagonist, is smart, is funny, is intuitive, is strong. Like, she was just an amazing character for me to find at that point. And that was like the height of my second wave, right? And then I got to college, and I got to like what was probably the philosophical height of my second wave, but it didn't feel good. So I took this class, I think it was freshman year, called Black Women's Writing with a professor named Dr. Ernest L. Gibson III. And I'm glad it was him because I don't think many people could have ushered me through that class in the same way as he did. When I encountered that class, I was excited to take it because I was, we're second waving it. We're hungry for it. We're looking for Black stories. And by that time, we were looking for Black stories by Black writers. So I was like, okay, let me at it, right? And then I took the class and we read books like Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eye. I think we read Beloved as well. Gloria Naylor, The Woman of Brewster Place. And I was heartbroken. Legit. Those books are sad. And encountering them, there was an initial shock that put me right on my rear, and I didn't know how to handle it. I was in awe of the form of these books, of the impact of these books. I mean, these books, I mean, they were saying something at a time when I hadn't really, like, I already knew I was going to be an English major, and I'd already, at the same time, I was taking a class in British historical fiction, I think. So I was reading like Dickens and, Tales of Two Cities and blah, blah, blah. I didn't care nothing about that class, and nothing in those books moved me, full stop. It certainly came nowhere close to moving me like the books in that Black Women's Writers class did. I mean, the form of those books, the way the story is told, it was masterful. And I learned to appreciate form then in a way I never had before. And in a way no other class after that really inspired me to. And at the same time as I was struck by awe of the craft, I was devastated at the content. I was crying. I had never cried about a book before. I was crying in that class because it was just sad. The violation of Black women's bodies, the isolation or abandonment of families, it was just sad. Oppression, violence of a sexual and physical, psychological nature. It was just very, very sad, and I didn't know how to move. It was very paralyzing, and if not for Professor Gibson, I don't know what wave I would be in. But he helped me to experience that and roll through, because he helped me to understand that although I wanted to be paralyzed, and I felt guilt about the paralysis, because I was like, you a Black woman, you better get over it and read these books by these Black women and whatever, rah, rah. But it didn't help. I just felt guilty, and that didn't help. It was just further paralyzing. And Professor Gibson helped me to see that these writers are telling the truth. And like I said in a previous video, that's a writer's job. It's their job to tell the truth. It's not their job to soften it for you. It's your job to grow, and that's their gift to you. Yeah, you got to grapple, and no, it's not easy. But as Toni Morrison once told Oprah, I wish I could have been there. But anyway, it's hard. That's why they call it reading. It's not supposed to be easy all the time. Sometimes the journey through the book costs something of you, but it's worth it. Sometimes you got to shed some stuff, but it was just baggage anyway. And I had never encountered books that made me move myself and have to reposition my posture to get through it. But I'm grateful that I did. The fear that I felt, even though I found a way to angle through it, didn't quite go away. But it helped me not to give up on Black stories altogether. And I found books like L.L. McKinney's A Blade So Black. I found Octavia Butler's Fledgling. I found Toni Morrison's Sula and Song of Solomon. I found Alexandria House's Contemporary Romance and D.A. Young's too. I found these books. And what I want to tell other writers white writers particularly, who might be afraid to write a Black character because you think that means bringing in trauma. What I want to say to other readers who are afraid to read Black stories because you think it means subjecting yourself to trauma is that's not always the case. There is joy in Black novels that I have found nowhere else. And you're depriving yourself of something extremely consequential and imperative. So be brave, because that's why they call it reading. Now, speaking of Black storytelling, let's check in on our favorite motley crew, see what Eliza Black is up to.
10. I wanted a map, not to know where things are, but to know where I am. After Eve Ewing. The kettle whistles, and Rain pours their tea and slides a mug to Eliza. Found is a strong word, Great Rain. I was taken just like you. Probably because I was on to, well, what you just said. Not that this has been going on since the slave trade, though. I only knew about the 50-year pattern of a crap ton of Black women disappearing. The snatching. You noticed, my smart niece. Yeah, for all the good it did. It always does good for someone to look for us. Weakens the hold of the grave over those of us with powers. Those of us? You have powers too? You are not alone. I am a seeker as well. I have done what I can in my lifetime, made us strong here, able to fight. And what am I supposed to do in my lifetime? Begin the ending of this horrible design. Find the other gifts of the ancestors and with them lead us all out of here. Oh, just that? Cool. I'll have us out of here in 3 shakes. Eliza smiles lamely and sips her cooled tea. It will take time. I will train you and help you better hear the voices beneath the suppression of the grave. I thought that I would be able to hear them now. No. Just in your passing here as the grave stripped away the tonic's hold to impose its own. I called it luck because there are ways to get around the grave's power. That tonic would have been much harder. Best luck we can get around here. Still, you'll need training to strengthen your hearing, and our window is small. You mean because the next 50 years will be up next June? Yes. The next snatching is barely more than a year away, and the grave will be too strong to challenge for at least another 3 decades. I'm not growing old here. Eliza gulps the last of her tea. When do we start? Now. Without another warning, Rain leaps across the breakfast bar and tackles Eliza to the ground. Scratching at her aunt's hands that grip her throat, Eliza tries to fight through the shock, to remember her self-defense lessons, but is quickly engulfed in darkness. When she wakes up a few minutes later, she's stretched out on a well-used couch. She jumps to her feet when she sees Rain sitting across from her in a rocking chair. What the disrespectful expletive was that? Rain snorts. Cute. That was your first lesson. Keep your guard up. You may not be in your eternal rest yet, but people die in the grave all the time. I thought you were going to teach me how to harness my powers. Don't be naive. I'm going to be teaching you a lot of things. Now, up. Reach your full potential every Tuesday with Britt Riderly's Writer's Ambition. Then embrace adventure every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday with Eliza Black. Don't leave us hanging. We'll see you soon.